Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. West Ham United have just confirmed David Moyes has signed a new deal, a new contract lasting until the summer of 2024. Well deserved. I'm not going to sit here and pretend in this video I've always been David Moyes' biggest fan, because that just wouldn't be true, would it? Okay, but he deserves it. There's no denying that. Even his first tenure here, when he kept this up, I wanted to see him gone, but I also felt he deserved a new deal. But anyway, he's got it now, and I think this is good news. I think it's good news because we can now start planning, whether it's this summer transfer window or it's what the squad may look like in 2 seasons' time. Because I think that's what David Moyes wants to do. And when you're only on a 1-year deal or an 18-month deal like he was, you can't really do that. I've never been a fan of managers in their final year of the contract. There is some which is different, like Sir Alex Ferguson. You can allow that because you know he's coming to the end of his long tenure kind of thing and he's retiring and stuff. That's a little bit different. But when you look at, and I keep using Eddie Howe at Bournemouth as, you know, the perfect example really. Everyone knew his contract was expiring. He was leaving Bournemouth and they got relegated that year. Now, had he had an extra 2 years, he may still have got relegated, but I'm quite stubborn. You're going to struggle to sort of persuade me that the contract had no correlation to the team's performance. And it's a bit like that. We knew Moyes was going to get a new deal should he perform well. He had that automatic 1-year extension anyway, just keep us in the Premier League. But when it comes to players like last season, like Mipo Debeko or Connor Coventry, I always think, well, what's the point in Moyes blooding these youngsters if he's not going to reap the rewards? Because they will not perform to such a high level as the more experienced players you'd expect, purely down to experience. So they need to get that game time in order to develop that experience kind of thing. But why should the manager, if he doesn't know he's going to be here next season, put the youngsters in and, you know, perhaps sacrifice a few performances here and there, because you're going to reap the rewards long term, but the manager's not guaranteed to be long term. Now he is. Now he's got a 3-year contract. So next season I expect and hope to see a handful of youngsters, not all of them, because they're not all good enough. Moyes will know which ones have got a chance of making it at West Ham and which ones don't. It might just be the new signing like Pierre Ekwa that we just signed from Chelsea. It might be someone like him. He looks at it and thinks, actually, that guy, if Declan Rice gets injured, that guy can maybe step in for 2 or 3 games kind of thing. It might be something like that. I don't know. I don't watch enough of the under 23 games. I watch the highlights. That is it. But that gives you a very hand-picked view. But anyway, back to David Moyes. This is what I want to see now. Long-term planning at West Ham. He's always alluded to it, and it's usually in reference to recruitment and scouting. He's always referred to stuff like that. He's spoken about how he thinks he can build something good. He's sort of alluded to that European football's come a little bit early actually, and we'd have been better off maybe finishing 7th or 8th and then next season going for 6th in that position. And I don't disagree with him. I get what he's alluding to. He hasn't said outright. You have to read between the lines a little bit. And I get what he's saying completely, because the squad is quite thin for a European campaign next season. We're probably about 4 or 5 bodies short really to have a real run at the Europa League. And we don't have enough money for 4 or 5 players. We might have a decent spend there, but bearing in mind we need a first choice striker ideally, possibly Jesse Lingard, and he looks like he wants a centre back as well. That's not cheap. That is not going to be cheap. There's not going to be much money left at all in the kitty. But what we now need is to see, he's referred to again just before the end of the season, he spoke about how he needs more scouts, about how his scouting department is one of the smallest in the Premier League. And this now, I just hope that in the contract negotiations, I'm pretty certain there will have been, that Moyes is sort of, as conditions of him signing, perhaps not in the contract per se, but gentleman's agreement with David Sullivan, that the scouting network does get looked at. The recruitment model is developed by Moyes as well. And this is something I think is important, because the director of football is a role that is usually important in football kind of thing, but I think if it ain't broken, don't fix it kind of thing. And if Moyes wants to be in charge of that, I think it's almost important to some extent you allow him to be, because if not, he's then working under another man's decisions when it comes to transfer strategy, and I think that gets a bit risky, because we've seen the Saïd Benrahma thing. There's no getting away from it. Okay, he's a fantastic player. We know why he was purchased. It wasn't necessarily the manager's choice. I think we saw that during the season, and I don't think we can afford, financially or performance-wise on the pitch, I don't think we can afford to have that kind of ego battle, if you like, off the pitch between the chairman and the manager. You can't have that sort of two people wanting different players and then the chairman overriding his manager. I don't think you can have that. If you're going to have that, you need to have it from day one. There is successful structures in football where the director of football does pick the players for the manager works well, and that's where the manager becomes more of a coach than the manager. But that's not what Moyes wants. Moyes wants to be in control of everything. I just hope this 3-year deal allows that. I hope that it gives him permission. Like I said at the start, I know I've never been his biggest fan. I'm not going to pretend I am. I still am his biggest fan. It'd be wrong. Gonzo rates him higher than me. I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I think Moyes is the number one manager in the league. I think he was manager of the season last season kind of thing. I've still got some reservations, if you like, but I don't want to get into it too much because this is positive news, and this is positive for West Ham because, like I said, I think having a manager on a long-term deal is possibly one of the most important things for a football club. You can always put clauses in there that if we finish in 17th, 18th, 19th, 20th, whatever, that we can sack the manager with no compensation kind of thing. And I would expect any manager at West Ham to agree to that, given the squad available. You back your own ability, don't you? But this is really, really good news for West Ham. It sort of relaxes everything a little bit. And the one thing that's important with Moyes at the club, I think, is now, he needs a new assistant manager. We know that. Whether that's Billy McKinlay or he promotes from within and brings in another coach, which I'm kind of expecting him to do, really. I know McKinlay's been tipped as his new number 2, but I wouldn't be surprised if he looks at Stuart Pearce, Kevin Dolan, or Nevin and says, actually, one of you guys will be my number 2 and I'll just get another coach to come in and join the team kind of thing. I wouldn't be surprised if he's looking at Mark Noble saying you can almost become a part-time coach at the end of next season if you wish to hang your boots up. There's a position there for you, because that's what David Moyes on a 3-year contract allows now. It allows him to have that conversation with the likes of Mark Noble and say, you've got one more year left playing West Ham. I'm still here for further 2 years. If you want to hang your boots up and join the coaching staff, you can do. If you want to go do the under 23s, you can do. It allows Moyes to build for the future and probably beyond David Moyes as well, really, and put something in place that when at the end of 3 years and Moyes was to walk away, the club's in a much better place off the pitch and there's some sort of succession planning going on. But that's a long term plan. But I just think this is why he allows that 3-year contract. But the transfer targets as well now, we now need to see a little bit of movement on the transfers. We know he can be a bit slow at selecting his targets, and I think it's been forgivable in the past, because when he first came here after Slaven Bilic, he had a month and a half, and then the transfer window opened. Then the second time he come in, he had 2 months, then the transfer window opened, and then there was the whole thing with COVID and stuff, and the transfer window opened at an unusual time, and no one really knew how football was going to work in terms of transfers and stuff. But this summer, there's almost no excuse now. I think he's had reasonable excuses for the last 3 windows he's been here to not get the transfer window bang on. I think he has, to in some extent. I think the 2nd January one, so when he took over from Pellegrini, Jared Bowen and Thomas Souček came in, I think he smashed that. The January went by, Jesse Lingard, fantastic sign. Still think we could have done with a striker, but it was right. Generally, it was right, and we can say that now that we know we finished 6th and got Europa League. He got the transfer window right. This summer, he needs to get it right again. This is probably his biggest transfer window at West Ham. Sure, there is not survival in the Premier League at stake, but what is at stake is Europa League and having a solid Premier League campaign. I'm going to put down my targets for next season now already. It may change come August, but at the minute, if you were to offer me 12th in the Premier League and getting out of the Europa League group stage and taking the FA Cup, not necessarily the League Cup, I can forgive him for throwing the League Cup this year, because that's when the Europa League group stages are played at the same time as the League Cup. So I don't mind him prioritising the Europa League, providing he does that. I don't want to see us put a young side in the League Cup and then a mixed side in the Europa League kind of thing, need a campaign. If we take the Europa League series and get out of the group, I don't mind conceding the League Cup next season too much. But if we take the FA Cup series, get out of the group stage of Europa League and finish 12th or above, I'll be happy. I'll be happy with that. I think that'll do. That'll be a success, and I think that will be progression. Because the one thing that last season, I guess the question is, was it a bit of a blip? Was it a purple season? Did we take advantage of Tottenham and Arsenal not doing too well, no crowds, whatever you want to call it, whatever thing you want to look at last season? I think that was a bit unusual, that was a little bit different, and throw it all in the pot. Is that why we finished 6th? Because I do think we punched above our weight. I don't think we've got the 6th best starting 11 in the Premier League. I don't think we've got the 6th best squad, definitely not the 6th best squad in the league. We're lacking depth. But so I think Moyes had us punching above our weight, and that's why I think he'd done a fantastic job last season, deserved Manager of the Year over Pep Guardiola. So the challenge for him next season is to get us performing at least as to what we are, which I think is a top 10 team. I think the starting 11 in the squad is good enough for the top 10 in the Premier League, but I'm willing to sacrifice a couple of positions in order to see European adventure, essentially. That's what I want to see next season. So now we've got to get the transfer window nailed down so that we're ready to go next season to achieve something like that. I wouldn't be surprised if Moyes' targets wasn't too far off mine. I think he'd have a bit more ambition, if I'm honest. I think he'd probably be looking at top 10 as a minimum and getting out the European groups and stuff like that. But we've now got to get the players in, where that is, like I said, that is Jesse, a striker that will compete and put Antonio on the bench. That's got to be the aim. A bit of cover for Rice and Souček, whoever that is, and seems to want a centre-back. I'll do a video on that later on because I've got my own opinion on the whole centre-back thing. But anyway, I'm going to shut up. But there you have it. David Moyes, 3-year contract at West Ham until the summer of 2024. No doubt he deserves that. He 100% deserves it. I think the owner had no choice really, regardless of what Moyes' sort of demands were. Sullivan had to give it to them. There's some things that's like, I feel just have to happen sometimes in football. There's no other way you can get around it. Moyes getting a new deal was one of them. And I think if Moyes wants Jesse Lingard, I think that's another one in football at West Ham where Sullivan just has to get it done. I know it's a lot easier said than done. It's not my money, and obviously if it costs 50 million, it's not a good deal kind of thing. But I often say that if the manager has a number one target and you can get him, unfortunately, I don't think finances come into it too much. I think you've just got to go get that player because it's what the manager deserves. David Moyes deserves his number one target. If it's Tammy Abraham and it's costing 5-10 million more than we budgeted for, I think we're going to have to bend over backwards to try and find that extra 5-10 million for him, because I think it's what he deserves. He's showing, you get me the players I want, I will make it work on the football pitch. He's done that. We've got European football. He's got a new 3-year deal, and hopefully this summer we can continue to back him, and here's a good season next season. Anyway, I'm going to disappear. Good news for West Ham fans, good news for David Moyes, good news for West Ham United. If you enjoyed this video, drop a like on it, subscribe to the event here. Tomorrow there'll be videos going up every day, don't worry about that. I'll catch you in a bit.